Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Igniting Change, United Way Unfiltered podcast. We are super excited to have Molly Olson on today. Molly is our COO at United Way of Southeastern Idaho. So she handles so many things. It's not even funny. But one of the things that she covers is what we're going to talk about today, which is the community investment process. So what that means is the United Way fundraises for money to give back to our nonprofit partners who serve the population that we serve. And we're going to walk through like what that means, how it works, all the things. And Molly's in charge of that among many things. So Molly, what is the community fund? And well, let's just start there. What is the community fund for United Way?
Yeah, so anytime a donor donates directly to United Way of Southeastern Idaho, that goes into our community fund, which then we pool all of those dollars together and open up a competitive grant process yearly for nonprofits to apply for those dollars.
So, tell me a little bit about what that means in terms of like leveraging your money, right? So, like if I give, let's say that my company has a workplace campaign and I give $5. Why would I give that $5 to United Way versus like an individual organization?
Yeah, so there's a few different reasons. One would be that we are we vet those nonprofits very closely to make sure that they are providing needed services and quality services to our neighbors and community members. The other reason is a lot of times these nonprofits, if they get a grant from United Way, they can leverage those dollars to attract additional grant dollars.
Okay. Okay, so wait, you're telling me that we don't just pick our nonprofits like out of a hat?
No.
Okay, okay. So it sounds like, if I'm understanding this correctly, a nonprofit in Southeastern Idaho can apply for a grant from United Way.
Correct.
Okay. And then when they apply for this grant, they probably say what project they need in order to better serve the community in need. And then once they apply for the grant, and let's say you're at the point in your community investment process where you have a set number of applications, however many nonprofits who have applied, what happens then? Like, there's a whole process to this, and I want to break it down very simply.
Yeah, so after there's a letter of intent step for the process, and that's just a basic screening to make sure that these nonprofits and their projects align with our pillars, so financial stability, education, and health. And so once their project has been determined to align with that, we gather a group of community volunteers across all different sectors and walks of life, and we bring them together and they go through that application, the submitted full application, and really they're looking to see we're rating each of their applications on whether it's a quality program, whether it's needed, and whether they have the ability to deliver on those outcomes that they're saying that they can. And so after reviewing this the submitted application, then these community members actually go on site to these nonprofits and get to see the work in real time.
Okay, I want to come back to that in just a
Yeah.
second, but first, when we say these nonprofits that are applying for the grants, when we say they're vetted, that like, I think it's, if you're coming from the outside perspective, it would be easy to be like, United Way is looking at them, making sure that they do all the things that you said. But having been a part of this myself, it's really like intense in terms of making sure that their finances are in order, that they're following all the regulations. This is like a full like audit review, right? This isn't just to like glance over.
Right. Yeah. So they have to submit their financials. They have to, the other thing I forgot to mention that we rate them on is their fiscal responsibility and their sustainability as well. And so we're really looking at not only do they have great plans to do good work, but can they do the good work and do they have the organizational structure in place to do that work?
Yeah, so we can, as a community, then understand and trust that the nonprofits who receive this grant have been like thoroughly looked at in terms of their ability to execute on the projects or whatever the situation is that they're applying those funds for.
Yes.
Okay, very
Yes.
good. I think that's important because I think, like, more than ever, when you give money, you want to know, A, that it's going to make a change, like that's going to go toward something that is meaningful, but also that the person who is managing this money or the organization that's managing the money, in our case, United Way, has standards and, procedures in place to make sure that all of that happens the way it's supposed to happen. So it's a big deal. And, I think it's easy for you to say, like, this is what we do, but like I can tell you that it is a lot of work, and we're all very appreciative that you do this for us. Now let's talk a little bit about the panels you mentioned.
Right.
So in this process, you get to the point where the nonprofits have submitted their grant applications. And then it's not us, the staff of United Way, who picks who gets what money. So as you mentioned, we have community members who are volunteers, and they come and meet up under your direction of like, this is how we do this. And then they actually go to the nonprofit sites for those who have applied for the grants. So, like, for example, maybe Aid for Friends, a group of volunteers might go and visit and a site visit. What is that like when this group goes to the site?
Yeah, it's really amazing. We try to, as staff, kind of shadow the panels so that we can have some of that experience that the panels are having and be informed on that process. And I have to say, every year I go, there's always tears. The volunteers are so overwhelmed with what our nonprofits are doing, with what little they have, and low on staff, low on funding, and they're making differences in people's lives. And um, I, the panelists always walk away with a sense of awe in our community and our nonprofit partners.
Yeah. I think that maybe actually being there and seeing the work, right? Having that touch, feel experience could really change your perspective on what happens every day in your community.
Yes, and I think there's some other benefits to the nonprofits by doing it this way because then it's plugging those nonprofits in with people in our community that are passionate. And so, a lot of times these panelists go back and volunteer for these nonprofits to help them, meet their goals as well.
That's amazing. And tell me, like, what feedback you get from people in our community. And these are just, people we work with, people we know. Um, if your neighbor is one of these panelists, for example, what are they saying about the experience? Like, what does that feel like?
Yeah, so our nonprofit partners are extremely grateful to have the opportunity to come into contact with community members that they may not ever have been able to connect with before. And as I said, a lot of times that leads to these community members becoming truly passionate about that organization and donating their time to better serve that organization.
Yeah. So when we, let's say you get done with the site visits, right? The panelists are done with that, and then you come back and then you reconvene. What happens then?
Yeah, so each panel are assigned between 4 and 5 nonprofits. Um, they know how much money they have to allocate across those nonprofits. So they come together as a panel and, kind of decide how they're going to allocate that money across those nonprofits. And then each panel has a chair. So the chairperson, we meet with them, the staff, myself and Shantae and the panel chairs, and they present their recommendations. We make any final tweaks as a group, and then we bring that to the board, our board of directors, to vote on.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to let people know that this is a community-led decision.
Correct. Yes. So these are community dollars from our donors, and it is a community-led decision on where those dollars are going.
And in terms of our grant recipients or nonprofit agencies who end up receiving the grants, why is this funding different? Why is this funding important? Why is United Way's dollars perhaps critical in a way that other grant dollars are?
Yeah, that's a really good question. A lot of funding that nonprofits receive come from a lot of it's federal funding or state funding, and with that, there's a lot of requirements. So, if somebody makes $1 over that income level, they can't get help. And so, and a lot of them have, you can only use it for this or for this demographic. And so with our dollars, we understand that there is a price to delivering good services. So not only are they fairly unrestricted, but they also will help support the staff because we know that you need good staff to provide services. But then they also are flexible enough that if somebody needs a gift card for gas or food, that they're able to use those dollars for that.
This money, the grants that United Way provides, it seems to me like it makes everything go further.
Right.
Do you think that maybe let's give an example? So like I know in my experiences with shadowing on the panel, in one case, one of our partners shared an example of so it's a senior center, one of our senior centers, and a fridge had gone out. And for our senior center population, going to the senior center and receiving that meal might be the only, nutritious meal they have that day. And that um, fridge going out is a big deal.
Right.
So with the grant funding, they were able to step in and buy a new fridge and then help this process of giving nutritious meals and socialization to seniors in our community. They did that with United Way dollars because, as you said, the grant restrictions, and I don't know, how many members of our audience have dealt with grant regulations, but it's intense. You have very finite rules on what you can and can't do. And I think United Way comes in as a safety net for being able to keep serving community members in need. Do you think that's accurate?
Yes, I think that's accurate. It brings to mind another example of a story that I had heard. It was a domestic violence shelter, and it was in a rural area, and this woman ended up there, and she had been a victim of human trafficking, and she just needed to get home. And none of their grants had funding for that, and so they used our dollars to make sure that she got home.
Wow. Oh, what do you think if our nonprofit partner were one of our partners were sitting here today? What do you think they would say about our funding?
I've heard it time and time again that it's absolutely essential. They're able to use our funding to fill the gaps in what other funding won't cover, which is truly changing the lives of their clients.
Yeah. Do you think that if let's say, everything stopped and we just shut down tomorrow, which is definitely not going to happen, but let's just say for sake of argument, like that happened. What do you think the ripple effect would be if United Way was not able to give these grant dollars to our partners?
Yeah, I think our grant dollars last year helped over 30,000 households. So imagine that those 30,000 households would have less and less assistance and less of a safety net.
I love hearing the details of this because I think it's sometimes glossed over in terms of this is the amount we do, this is who we give them to. But I think the detail of why this funding is so important for the reasons you just shared and the story you just shared, it's especially crucial that people understand the why behind that. So I'm really glad that we talked about that. How long have you been at United Way, Molly?
I've been here 6 years.
6 years. That's a
Yeah.
chunk of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
What what would you say is your how do you feel about this part of your job, the community fund and the investment grant process? How does that feel to work in
Oh,
that area?
yeah. It's my favorite part.
Is it?
Yes, I love it because I get to hear from the nonprofits who are incredibly grateful when they get those award letters. I get to hear from the panelists and the overwhelming gratitude that they have to be able to be part of this process and connect with these nonprofits on a very real level and really understand what our community's needs are. Um, and it's just it's all feel good. It starts in January and it ends in May, and it's just all feel good for 4 months.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that. It's a lot of work too. And I think that your attention to detail and your execution of this process, I mean, to be honest, we take it for granted because she makes it seem easy, and I know it's not easy. And I know how much our nonprofit partners respect you and are grateful for your counsel and direction on this process. I've been out in the world in our events where a partner will come up and be like, "Oh my God, Molly, I don't know what I'd do without you. Thank you for letting me call you 20 times about this grant application." And so, yeah, I just want to say thank you for all that you do for us and for
Thanks,
the
Jenny.
community. Is there anything else that you would like to say about this process or things that you think maybe our community should know about all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that is really important to know about this process is we are giving grants to these itty bitty volunteer led. I'm thinking, like the food pantry in Bingham County, it's much more than a food pantry. They're providing senior exercise classes. They have a clothing closet. They're doing all these things in Shelley that the community desperately needs. And, you may not even have heard about them before, but we are finding these programs that are essential in these rural communities to really keep these communities going.
I love that. So even if you were one of these smaller nonprofits, maybe you don't have staff beyond one or two, you're on equal playing field with our nonprofits who are much bigger with more staff.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
The only requirement is that, you be a nonprofit and that you're serving our local community because 100% of the donations stay in Southeastern Idaho. So, beyond like aligning with our goals, anybody can apply as long as they're serving the local population and are a nonprofit.
Awesome. So if let's say that you are a nonprofit and you're interested in submitting a grant application, what should they do? How should they find out more information?
Yeah, they're more than welcome to reach out to me. There's also a timeline on our website. The grants open up every year, the first week in January. So
First week in January. So
yeah.
that's coming up in terms of each year, January is the time. So I'm gonna put that link in the show notes,
Okay.
and I'm gonna put your email in the show notes. So I would encourage anyone who is a nonprofit or works for a nonprofit who hasn't applied for the grants to go ahead and find out that information and use Molly to get that process going. Awesome. And then I know you said that we have lots of volunteers for the panelists,
Yes.
but if someone is interested, they should contact you.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Molly, thank you so much for talking to us about the community fund. These dollars are so critical and crucial and important, not only for our nonprofits, but for the community members they serve. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Jenny.
Okay. Well, thank you again for joining us on Igniting Change, United Way Unfiltered, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.